This video is going to walk you through completing 16-2 work together. So there are two steps. The first step says the statement of stockholders' equity has two major sections, capital stock and retained earnings. Information for a statement of stockholders' equity is taken from more than one source. The amounts for the capital stock section are obtained from which source? You're going to check all that apply. So we're just looking at the capital stock section. I would suggest if you have your book that you would maybe open up your book as well. Really, for our capital stock section, we are only going to use our capital stock account, and that's going to come out of our general ledger. Next one, the amounts for the retained earnings section are obtained from which source? Check all that apply. Now, retained earnings, there's going to be multiple sources that we are going to use. We are actually going to use our income statement for our retained earnings, and then we're also going to use our adjusted trial balance. Last question here is, which of the following will increase retained earnings? And it says check all that apply. Now, I don't really like this one because it doesn't really say, it doesn't really say if there's an increase to dividends declared or an increase to net income or that kind of thing. So really, the only thing that is going to increase our retained earnings from this list would be our net income. If we had a higher net income, that would then increase our retained earnings. We're going to grade that step and go to the next step. On the next step, it says use the trial balance and income statement of Superior Corporation in question assets. Prepare a statement of stockholders' equity for the current year as of January 1st. As of January 1st, Superior Corporation had issued 8,000 shares of capital stock with a par value of $10 per share. During the fiscal year, the corporation issued 250 additional shares of capital stock. There are several blank cells in the first column that require section headings, amounts, selections, and dates. Dates should be entered as month, day, 20-. Then it gives us the example, January 1st, 20-. No colons are needed. So again, I would suggest it might be helpful to have your book open to follow along. Remember, whenever we create any type of financial statement, we are always going to start with our heading, and our heading is going to be who, what, and when. So our who is Superior Corporation. Our what, we are creating a statement of stockholders' equity. And our when is going to be for year ended December 31st, 20-. Okay, now we're going to create the first section of our statement of stockholders' equity. And so that's just going to be our heading here. Our first section is, now I am going to go, oh, they don't give us, usually they give us a word, kind of a word bank, but they don't do that for us. So I would definitely suggest that you have your book open then to help you through this. So our first section of our statement of stockholders' equity is going to be capital stock. So that's the label that we're going to list. And then we're going to put in our par value. Now, they've made it quite, they've made it easier for us by giving us some of the terms in here that we just need to fill in some other blanks. So when we go and look in our directions, it does tell us that our par value is $10. Next thing that we're going to do is we are going to list our beginning balance of our capital stock. Now, we need to put that label in, and to put the label in, we are going to start with January 1st, 20-. And then this box here, we're going to put how many shares were issued at the beginning of the year. So let's see here. Up in our directions, it does tell us we had 8,000 shares of capital stock on January 1st. So that's what we're putting in. So 8,000. We're then going to go ahead and put in the amount. So here we're going to take 8,000 times $10 to get 80,000. Next, we're going to look at issued during the current year. Again, that's something that they're giving to us in our directions. So it says that the corporation issued 250 additional shares. So we'll fill in that 250. We're going to then take 250 times 10 to get our 25,000 or 2,500. Okay, now we need to put balance, and this is going to be the end of the year balance. So we are going to put December 31st of 20 dash dash. We need to fill in then how many shares were issued on December 31st. To get this number here, we're going to add our two amounts. So our beginning was 8,000. We issued 250 during the year, so we now have 8,250. I'm going to add these two numbers together to get our balance. So we should have 82,500. And we could double check our math here and make sure. We would just take our shares issued times that par value, and we should get that same number. Our next section of our statement of stockholders' equity is going to be our retained earnings. So we're going to go ahead and put in that label, retained earnings. Okay, and it says balance, and then we have a blank there. So this is just looking for the date. So this is like our beginning balance. So January 1st of 20 dash dash. And now we need to put in that number. So now we need to go back and we're going to scroll up and we're going to look at our adjusted trial balance. And we're going to scroll down until we find our retained earnings. Here is our retained earnings. This number here is going to go down into our statement. So 15,283.4. Now what we're going to do is we're going to fill in this here. So they give us a drop-down box. So net income, we can choose either before or after. We're going to choose our net income after federal income tax. We want our final net income. So I'm going to scroll up and I'm now going to look at my income statement. It's important that we know where to find these numbers that we are using on our statement of stockholders' equity. And so I'm going to go to the bottom of my income statement, and that last number I should see, net income after federal income tax. So I'm going to go ahead and plug that number in. So 73,148.8. Next it says for dividends, are we going to do less or plus? Now, if we think through this, dividends is something that we are paying out. So we are going to choose less here. So less dividends declared during 20 dash dash. I'm going to scroll back up and I'm going to go to my adjusted trial balance. Okay, now my dividend should be right under where my retained earnings were on my adjusted trial balance. So here they are at 12,000. I'm going to scroll back down and put in 12,000. Now I'm going to do exactly what they say here. I'm going to take my net income less my dividends. So go ahead and do your math. I get 61,148.8. I'm going to label that as my net increase, okay, because my net income here was larger than my dividends, so I have a net increase. Now, since I have a net increase, I'm going to add that net increase to my balance on January 1st to get this number. So I should get 76,432.2. I'm going to label that as my ending balance. So balance December 31st, 20 dash dash. Okay, then I have my total stockholders equity, and this is my ending stockholders equity. So I'm going to put in my ending date of December 31, 20 dash dash. And to get this, I'm going to add my capital stock and my retained earnings together. So I should get 158,932.2. I'm going to grade my final step. I would say the biggest thing on our statement of stockholders' equity is, like I said, it's important that you know where to get your information, where your numbers that you're plugging in are coming from. Okay, I'm going to save and continue, and you now can complete the 16-2 on your own.